a lot has been said about Nigeria's independence. 62 years ago, the most populous country in Africa, Nigeria, gained independence from the British imperialist empire with so much dreams and hopes. The founding fathers fought fervently for the independence of this great nation with the firm belief that the natives would be in a better position to transform and advance this country far beyond where the colonial masters had envisaged, or far beyond their plans for the new nation. Today, the conversation we are having is, are we where our founding fathers expected us to be? Are we where our founding fathers dreamt that their forebears, their descendants, would be in the next 62 years, which Nigeria will attain tomorrow of independence? Weak states actually independent? Our people, our forefathers were not fighting for an independence of a weak state that would dwell more on resource distribution, on wealth distribution, rather than wealth production, wealth generation, and the empowerment of the people as individuals and as a collective. The answer is obvious. We are definitely not where they expected us to be. So then, what is the problem? The problem for me, in my own observation, is that the intelligentsia, the intellectual class of Nigeria in particular, and Africa in general, are dwelt more on the conversation around wealth distribution, because their interpretation and understanding of wealth is archaic. Whereas the definition and understanding of wealth is organic, it is revolutionizing, it is evolving. Wealth in the days preceding our independence could be seen more from natural resources. Tin, coal, crude oil, iron ore, diamond, gold, and so on and so forth. Which was why the Vikings, the pirates, the buccaneers were moving everywhere, cutting and looting wealth and sharing with the colonial masters and the great monarchies of those eras. But today, the definition of wealth is different totally. The greatest of all the wealth is human resource. Human capital is the greatest capital. A fully developed human being that have gotten great education, the education that has empowered him to think, the education that has powered him to innovate, to create, to automate, to organize, to manufacture, to make great designs. That education, that man with that full capacity is worth more than a gold mine, because the ideas of that man can take over a gold mine, turn a gold mine into a multi-billion industrial complex. That is where, for me, Nigeria in particular, and Africa in general, is lacking. There is an urgent need for Africa to pursue scientific and industrial technological based development, because unless we industrialize Africa and Nigeria using the modern tools of science and technology, we will have a weak state, and a weak state is not truly independent. The dreams of our founding fathers and their labor would be in vain if we do not transform this country scientifically, technologically, industrially. If we don't create centers of excellence, if we have to keep depending on the illiterate political leadership of Africa, the unpatriotic political leadership of Africa and Nigeria, if we are going to keep depending on them to drive this development, I can assure you that it will not take place in our lifetime. It is a challenge from me to the intellectual community, to the intelligentials of Nigeria in particular and Africa in general, to devise ways by which we can make our universities to fund themselves outside the budgetary designs of the apparatuses of state. Like Harvard, like Oxford, name it. What stops University of Benin, for example, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, University of Lagos, University of Ilorin, Ahmadu Bello University, University of Port Harcourt, River State University, and so on? What stops these great institutions from establishing endowment funds that will raise and generate revenue from everywhere in the world, not just even from their alumni, not just from their immediate cities or communities, not just from their immediate states, not just from their immediate country, but from across the world, everywhere, everybody. An endowment fund and an intensive and accountable fund driving mechanism in place. What stops us, the intelligentials of this country, represented in the tertiary institutions, from establishing organized working relationships with the few industries out there and the financial institutions for collaboration, so that the intellectuals, the academics, can serve as the research institution and machinery for these industries, like the Dangote groups, the United Bank for Africa, the Zenith Bank, the BUA group, the oil, companies that are emerging, especially the Nigerian ones, Start Oil, and so on and so forth. So that at the end of the day, funds will be generated and the institutions will determine the salaries of lecturers, and not some politician sitting somewhere that will be telling you that your salary that is less than $1,000 a month for the highest paid profession. That is so much. What a janitor will earn far more than in the other countries that we say we want to be independent from. A well-funded educational system that does not depend on the budgetary framework of the organized state of Africa, especially Nigeria, will serve better, far better, the developmental needs of our people. And I think that is where our founding fathers would have loved us to focus at this trying time, at this crucial and critical time in our developmental history. I call on everyone to give this a very serious thought, because if we don't, we'll find ourselves totally irrelevant in the world that the fourth industrial revolution will shape. A world driven by artificial intelligence, innovation, and automation. That is, today we say we are in a knowledge society. You can imagine how that world will be like. That will be the perfection of the knowledge society. Are we ready? Or we are going to be relevant and useless? Are we ready for the world that is for the world that is at the verge of becoming interplanetary? Or we want to sit here and be telling the rest of the world that do not colonize us like our forefathers did, be in the jungle, and the rest of the people in the world can keep progressing, and we'll be angry that they came to take over. The truth is that the world and its resources belongs to humanity as an entity. If you are not prepared and you don't organize yourself to be part of that journey, that human journey towards advancement, you are expecting sympathy, charity, and all whatnot. That would be totally unrealistic. And a world, an unrealistic world, is not what we should bequeath to our descendants. Our children would rather see us better organized and prepared for a greater world. That is my little Independence Day contribution, and I hope that it makes a lot of sense to us, and that this goes a long way to mobilize our people to wake up to the reality that confronts us today. Greatest Nigerian people, happy independence.